Hello there kids, today we are going to talk about simple machine. Okay, ano nga ba ang simple machine? What are simple machines? What are the different types of simple machines and how are they beneficial? Okay, so simple machines. Simple machines are meant to make work easier. These are examples of simple machines and they are somehow classified according to their use. So meron tayong slide, meron tayong ladder, scissors, and somewhat like a pulley system. Simple machines are mechanical devices that are used to make work easier, faster, and more accurate. And these are the 6 kinds of simple machines. We have the lever, inclined plane, wedge, screw, and wheel and axle. So, i-discuss natin isa-isa. Sorry, I missed the pulley, the last part. So, we are going to discuss this one by one. First is the lever, no? Ang levers. Ano nga ba ang lever? So, basic components ng lever natin, we have the bar. Okay? There's a bar in which there are interaction of 3 parts such as the effort or applied force, the fulcrum, which is this one, yung turning point ng sides, and we have the load or the resistance, yung amount of load na kailangan nyo. Okay. So, a rigid bar that moves about a point called the fulcrum. Fulcrum is like a turning point along the bar. So, basically, yung the difference between the force applied and the load that is present. Actually, it depends, no? It depends kasi the position of the fulcrum will depend on the situation that you are in. Okay. Force applied is called effort. So if you notice, no, parang tinatry niyang this person here is pushing down to lift this load over here using this bar with the use of a fulcrum para mas madali siyang i-lift, okay, at some point. And resistance is the resting force or the load, which is in this case is this one, the object that this person is trying to move. Okay. Levers are classified into 3 groups depending on where the fulcrum is. Okay, so if you notice, sa class 1, we have class 1, class 2, and class 3. Iba-ibang position ng fulcrum. This is quite similar. This is yung pinaka-common na nakikita natin examples of levers. So, yung example kanina is quite similar to class 1. Is basically or falls under class 1. In which class 1 is when the fulcrum is anywhere in between the load and effort. Okay, so nasa gitna. Applied force going this way. Applied force going this way. With the use of the fulcrum, turning point niya, which will lift the load up. Okay? Sa class 2 naman is when the fulcrum is opposite the effort. So basically the turning point again, which means if you're going to apply a certain force, no, going this way, okay, the effort, yung bar na yan turns at this point. Okay, this bar over here turns at this point. And in this case, a wheelbarrow carrying a load, no, para mas madali yung process of work. So then again, parang turning point nga siya, yung fulcrum, yun yung kailangan yung intindihin to understand, is that the fulcrum basically is like a turning point. The relationship between where the bar actually move, no? Kung saan siya gumagalaw. So, another example is yung class 3. Class 3 is when the fulcrum is opposite the load. The fulcrum is here. And the load is here. So, basically, opposite sila. And if you notice, if there's like a pile of sand, and if you're going to make use of a shovel, Okay. So, 'di ba when we lift, no, may load tayo, for example, you're going to shove it here sa pile of sand. Then if you notice kapag yung fulcrum nyo, your other hand, you tend to grab this part of the handle. And your other hand, dito nyo nilalagay this part, in between this part. Actually, the nearer you are to the load, the better. And then nililift up nyo yan. You are going to lift this up to a point of, as if you can see, ito yung handle ng shovel. This is now the representation of your fulcrum. Ito, yung handle. The moment you're going to lift up this bar, the turning point is at your other hand. Fulcrum siya. Parang kung may time lapse tayo of movement, it goes this way. Diba? If you're lifting it up. So the fulcrum is still there. The turning point is at this point, yung sa kabilang kamay ninyo, where you are holding or the handle. Okay? So then again, there are three types of levers. One is yung class 1. It's when the fulcrum is anywhere in between the load and effort. Class 2 is when the fulcrum is opposite the effort. Okay? Like a wheelbarrow nga. And class 3 is when a fulcrum is opposite the load. So one good example of this is when you are making use of a shovel. Okay. Inclined plane. Yan ang inclined plane. You already know the definition of inclined, diba? It's like a diagonal form if you're going to deal with mathematics at a certain angle, straight line, and a certain angle. This is called an inclination. Okay? So may certain angle yan dyan. It actually depends on how inclined one thing can be. It can be up to this part, pero syempre at that point medyo mahirap na to push that object, whatever object is there, is present. Okay, so a flat surface where one end is higher than the other. So ito na yung basic illustration. It is a flat surface which is referred to this line, in which one side is higher compared to the other, which is in this point is flat siya sa surface, sa other surface, sa horizontal surface. Okay. This allows heavy objects to slide or roll up to a higher point rather than to be lifted or carried. So, anong ibig sabihin niyan? For example, ito. There's a mini inclined plane. We call this as a ramp. Sa mga hospitals, meron yan. Yan ang main use niya. So that it will be easier for this person to push this load of boxes up to the truck with the use of a ramp or an inclined plane, specifically a ramp. So hospitals ganun din. Isipin nyo na lang, if there is a person which is lying on their beds, no? Nasa bed siya, and then let's say there are no vacant elevators, so they should be pushed using the hospital ramps. Na imagine nyo pag walang ramp, don't tell me nakahiga yung tao, idadaan niya sa stairs. Diba? How inconvenient is that? So, okay. That's one basic use for inclined plane. So, same point din dito. Making the work easier rather than if imagine this person carrying this barrel all the way up without using the ramp. So, 'di ba? Mahirap, mabigat. But in this case, with the use of an inclined plane, it now made the work easier by just simply pushing it, rolling it, to roll it up. Depende kasi. Meron, like in this case, sa first picture natin, you obviously, you just need to slide this all the way up. Okay? Wedge. Okay. Ang wedge. The physical trait of a wedge is like two inclined planes placed back to back. Anong ibig sabihin ni Teacher Mark dyan na two inclined planes? Parang inclined plane yan siya. Okay? Yan, if i-cut natin yan in half, there are like two inclined planes, this one and the other side. Two inclined planes placed back to back. A wedge is designed to separate or hold materials together. So in this case, this is a wedge. If you're going to hammer it through, this is going to break or split these two things apart. Quite similar to how the mechanism of an axe is, diba? So we door stopper, wedge ang ginagamit to hold materials together. And examples of wedge are axe, knives, nails, and chisel. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with what chisels are. Ginagamit yan for carving, wood carving. Okay. So then again, a nail is also an example of a wedge, in which it is basically used for holding materials together, and a knife is of course to separate materials apart, like cutting meat, not your hands, meat. Okay, well, basically is meat, but chicken meat, food meat. Okay, so yan ang edge, yan ang difference nila na yung use nila between edge and the inclined plane. And the other type of simple machine is a screw. A screw is a special kind of inclined plane. Technically, a screw is also an inclined plane with its spirals, no? Yung inclined plane na yan is nandyan sa spirals. Pero syempre, it's just a basic definition. But I know that you already know what a screw is. Okay. Screws are used to lift things and to hold things together. There's actually one use for screw, that you can actually lift water or even other things with the use of its spiral mechanism, such as this machine na to. Water level is only until here. Sometimes kasi if you're going to use pump, parang hindi masyadong kaya. So in this case, they're using this mechanism in which this water through the spiral, sumasama yung tubig pataas. Okay, so that's one way of making use of this simple machine, such as the screw method. Okay, examples of screw are bottle lids. Ito, very common yan, nandyan na yan. Champagne opener or corkscrew, tinatanggal yung part na yan dyan. Okay, wheel and axle is also an example of a simple machine. A wheel is locked on the central axle and they rotate together when force is applied on either one of them. So itong wheel na to is connected to the axle over here. At this point, you can see the connection between the two. And it says there that when one is when a force is applied to any of them, both actually follows, no? They rotate together. Pero with the basic mga technology that we are going through this past few years, no? So there are technology that they make na it's actually possible for the wheel not to follow at some point. So diyan na yung pumapasok yung mga terms such as yung mga wheel differential. Diyan na yung pumapasok na kasi as they further tried to apply this wheel and axle theory to build cars, it's quite different. Kasi it will not work properly. So diyan pumapasok yung mga technology as what we call the wheel differential. Pero we're not going to talk about that here. Okay, so examples of a wheel and axle simple machine are well. Alam niyo yung well, ito. So if you notice, ito yung wheel. Kumbaga, ito yung parang nagiging wheel ngayon. And this is the axle. Okay, this is the axle. So as you turn this, sumasama rin yung axle that lifts the bucket up all the way up with the use of a rope. Okay. This is actually also an example of a different type of simple machine, which I am going to talk about later. Okay. And in this case, also how a Ferris wheel works, no? So ganun din, wheel and axle din. The moment na mag-turn yung axle, the wheel turns as well. Okay. And also a doorknob, ganun din. The mechanism how you rotate your doorknob, the mechanism inside, which includes the axle, also turns, no? Yung sa outside, hindi nyo makita siguro na gumagalaw siya. Pero yung sa inside, it actually moves. Which makes the mechanism for doors to get unlocked. Okay? So, yan ang example of wheel and axle. Yung mga sa kotse, ganun din yung ginagamit natin. Wheel and axle din yan. Pero through greater technology, through yun na nga sinasabi ko kanina, wheel differentials. So, doon na yung application to improve further how wheel and axle should work. Okay. So, ito, basic lang talaga to. The basic mechanism of wheel and axle. And the last one is a pulley. Ano nga ba ang pulley? Pulley is a wheel that uses a rope to make work easier and lighter, just like this one. This is a pulley. Okay? So the more pulleys you use, the smaller force is needed to lift. So for example, ito, if you notice these two persons, this guy is making only use of one pulley. So if you can see that the drawing, the illustrator is trying to show us that this person is struggling kasi nagkakaroon siya ng sweaty face. While this one naman, making use of two pulleys, parang wala lang, easier to pull. It's easier for him to pull this load. Parehas lang yan sila scientifically, mathematically. The amount of load that they are carrying are actually just the same. Okay, they are just the same. So this is actually a different illustration. If you notice that, don't take note of the other parts na. Just focus at this one. 1, 2. Yan ang tignan natin. Okay? So this is the amount of force that this is interacting against gravity. So in this case is 100 newtons. Ganyan kahaba, pare-parehas yan silang lahat. If you notice, 100 newtons. But if you notice the other force here, gets smaller. From 100 becomes 50, becomes 33 and 1/3 and 25 na lang siya. Mas lumiliit siya, in other words. So bakit nga ba? Using one pulley, the amount force needed to lift 100 newton is 100 newtons as well. Okay? So, ganun yung force na nandyan dyan sa taas ngayon, this one, refers to the amount of force applied that you need to lift this force up, this load up. Okay? So, if you notice, with one pulley, 100 newtons ang kailangan to lift a 100 newton load. And sa example number 2, if you notice, lifting the same amount of load, nag-reduce to half. Nung naging half na lang, from 150 na lang siya. So, we are now using 3 pulleys here. 1, 2, 3. The amount of force needed to lift it up reduced by 33%. I mean 66% rather. So, 33 and 1/3 newtons amount of force na lang kailangan mo to pull this load. And having this 4 pulleys here, we have the same amount of force load here. So, nag-reduce siya because of using 4 pulleys. Naging 25% na lang yung amount of force needed compared to the first one, which is 100. Okay? So, ganun ka useful ang pulleys, mga pulley. The more pulleys that you're going to make use of, the lighter or the smaller amount of force needed for you to lift something up. Okay? So, yan ang pulley system. So, just to show you the example kanina, ito, yung well. If you notice, at this point, erase ko muna yung drawing sa gitna. Okay. So, if you notice this part, this actually makes use of the pulley system as well. Pero the only difference is that the rope doesn't actually pass through the bar, but instead it wraps around the bar. Okay? So parang pulley system pa rin yan siya. Another example pala of a pulley na hindi ko na-include dito is a flagpole. So if you notice dun sa school natin, we have a flagpole and you have a pulley. And this pulley basically may rope siya around it. And if you're going to put the flag here, tapos i-pull down nyo tong rope here, this side will go up with the help of this pulley. Okay? So, these are the basic simple machines that you should be aware of. Okay, so that is it for today.